People are calling this Spiral Abyss the hardest one ever. In this video, you're gonna watch me play through this hardest Spiral Abyss ever. Then I'm gonna play it a bunch of times with different teams off camera and come back to give you my tips and tricks and my character tier list for my first impressions of this Spiral Abyss. Welcome to Jello Impact, where we build and test every single character to help you decide who you want to wish for and build. So first glance, this Abyss is looking pretty scary. So it's Clorand, Fischl, Kazuha, Nahida. I've already cleared this with characters with 5-star weapons. Now we're doing 4-star weapons only. Engulfing Lightning Arlecchino. Wow. So 4-star weapons only. And C0 5-stars only.
As one with wind and cloud. Make yourselves a home. Time to testify. Into the shadows. Shadow Raven, let night fall. Raise the eternal oasis. Temple of Wisdom. Where do you think you're going? The wind knows me. Shoot on sight. Loaded.
Okay, that was my best clear ever on that side. Not bad, not bad. I think skill really matters, actually. Like just being familiar with the enemies and we'll use our burst to iframe that. We got them nicely grouped up.
Your fate. Witness the power of good watch. Game set. Busted.
We should have enough time. Yeah, there's lots of time. Arlecchino broken.
Let me lead you upon everybody stand back. Overruled.
Okay, easy, no problem. Deathmatch, Arlecchino really good. That should be the hardest chamber, so it should be doable from here.
Into the wind. Make yourselves at home. This may hurt a little. As you wish, me. Time to testify.
Didn't get the swirl.
Into
What's he gonna do?
By royal fallen leaves adorn my night. Ready.
Not my best time, but not bad.
Let me try. Things are about to get dicey. Gotcha. Witness the power. I'm going in.
Bruh.
Here comes the catch. Teamwork is trim. Witness my
We'll get some healing just so we don't get surprised.
rain cutter. Game's up. Quiet. Let's light it up. Going in. Transfix. Rain outlines your fate. Let me lead you. Busted. Here comes the catch. Teamwork is dreamwork.
She's not as broken as when she has her 5-star weapon, but she's definitely really broken all the time. Regardless.
Hunt them down. Into the shadows. Wings of darkness, come, sever night from day.
Didn't get a swirl.
The birds come.
Absorb Electro.
By royal decree.
We
Time to testify.
Ha!
Loaded.
Getting griefed by Nahida.
Shadow Raiden.
Oh my god.
Nilou, shoot on sight.
Worst clear ever. No. No, we're doing that again. Just for my own sanity.
Midnight Phantasm.
Wind Strider. Grow. The Temple of Wisdom. Time to testify. Committed to memory. Nilou, shoot on sight. Ready.
Okay. Much better.
Rain cutter. Game's up. From silver. Quietly now. Off we go. Go in.
Bro. We're gonna go after these guys first,
Gotcha. Here comes the catch.
because the consecrated beasts will always chase after us, but the horsies will not.
Did you? The horse.
Oh, we died. Oh, and now we have to do this one again. Goof. Alright, time to not die. That's the main thing.
Witness the power. Things are about to get dicey. Quietly now.
Shouldn't get careless.
My turn. Overruled.
No escape.
Rain cutter. This is where. Here comes the catch. Busted.
We'll save Bennett's burst for over here.
Witness my rise.
Body and mount brain outlines your fate. Witness the power of... Quietly now. Let's light it up! Teamwork is... Here comes the catch. Overrule. No, my sword. Let me lead you all. Busted. These are about to get dicey.
This is kind of close. Yeesh. 13 seconds.
Gotcha. Ring cutter. Game's up. Teamwork is dreamwork.
Not quite. Okay, this time we need to play better.
Let me lead you. Here comes the catch. Busted.
Went off in 2 different directions. Get over here, you.
Overrule. Rain outlines your fate.
Absolute peanut.
Going in.
Transfixed.
Everlasting as the moon.
No, my sword. Let me lead you. Here comes the catch. Gotcha. Teamwork is dreamwork.
My turn. Witness my rise. Overrule.
Witness the path. Busted. Things are about to get dicey. I'm going in.
Go on. Transfixed.
No, my sword. Let me lead you. Here comes the catch. Everybody stand back.
27 seconds. Should be very... Oh, almost done. Whew. Easy. Not even close. Not even close. Okay, so the teams were Chlorand with Lion's Roar. These are the artifacts. Pretty good, not amazing. Nothing absolutely crazy. Not awful. Official on Stringless with a good artifact set. Quite good. Good, 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 good. Off-piece. Good, obviously. And then, so that's, and then Nahida using Woodsith. A pretty tragic deep wood set. I mean, it's okay, but it's nothing crazy. Crit, EM. Bad, pretty mid. So nothing crazy on her. Kazuha using Favonius. He'd be better on Iron Sting on this team. He's got 675 EM, nothing crazy. Arlecchino, obviously herself, she's pretty broken, but she's just on deathmatch with 4-piece Glad. My Glad set's pretty good. Not absolutely crazy, but pretty good. You know, it's pretty good. And then I was using Xingqiu Yulan. Xingqiu on Fav with just a regular emblem set. Not that great of one. Pretty like achievable, honestly. I would say it's a pretty achievable emblem set. Yulan using Fav. Also on what I would think is a pretty achievable. Accidentally on 5-piece emblem. Apparently no off-piece. Really quite a mid set, to be honest. Arlecchino just heavily carrying this team. And then Bennett, Skyward Blade. That is a 5-star weapon, but it's not even, I mean, Sapwood Blade's gonna be just as good. And then he's just running ER HP for healing. So yeah, that's the team we 36 starred with. I'm gonna go run the Abyss with a few more teams. And I didn't show constellations, but everyone was C0. Official C6, of course. I guess the 4 stars are C6, mostly. But yeah, my Arlecchino is C0. My Yolanda is C1, but I worked really hard to not ever activate her second charge of her skill, so I don't think I activated it at all during those runs. Okay, so now I've played the new Abyss a number of times, and I know for sure people are having some trouble against the slimes. The slimes are kind of tricky because of the elements. Like, you have to make sure that you're using the right elements against each slime. I had the best luck just by killing them fast, but for sure you can kind of bait them out to the side. If you break their elemental shields, they start to run away. So the most important thing you can do is to break, especially the cryo shields, is to break them fast. So I would recommend Bennett Kazuha for the second side, something Bennett Kazuha, and for the first side, maybe Hyperbloom, something like that, something Dendro or Hydro, either Novelette or something Dendro. Yeah, Hydro to Vape, Dendro to Destroy. So that's my tip for that one. I don't think it's that bad once you try it a bunch and play it a bunch. I know Sebi Plays does a video where she talks about the strategy of the different things, so you can go check that out. For me, I just like to mash, so I definitely recommend, just as long as you have the right elements and good damage, you should be able to mash. So yeah, Bennett Kazuha plus Shangling or something, or different pyros for the second half, and then some sort of Hydro team or a Hyperbloom team for the first. And for floor 12, so we start off with 3 Primal Constructs, then the Ruin Guard, then 2 Ruin Drakes, then the 2 Eremites. I think for this side, they're just begging you to play Aggravate on the first half. Aggravate hasn't been that good for a lot of Abysses, but the first half is just begging you to play Aggravate. It doesn't have to be Aggravate. Hyperbloom will also work really well for the first half. So just a standard Hyperbloom team or an Aggravate team will be totally fine. The downside of Hyperbloom is that it will leave you with less Hydros for the second side. So that's one of the reasons why Aggravate is so good on the first, is Hydro is super, super important on the second. The second half is all about AoE damage and having Hydro. So if you have Novelette for the second side, like it starts out with 2 Pyro Abyss Mages and the Dendro Samatril, then 2 Abyss Lectors, and then 2 Serpent Knights. So you really need great damage and you need lots of Hydro. Very, very important. It really is the hardest chamber, Chamber 1. And Chamber 2 and 3 are noticeably easier. I think it gets easier and easier in terms of damage the further you go in the Abyss. Chamber 2 on the second half starts with the 2 Samurais, then the 2 Rockhound Wolfhounds, then the 2 Mechs. Or no, then it's it's the Samurais, then the Mechs, then the Wolfhounds, and then another Mech, and the construction specialist, like the claw thing. This is all about, again, AoE damage, multi-wave damage. If you happen to be able to fit a Zhongli onto your team, or a Geo in general, that means the Rockhound's a lot easier to deal with. And the third side is the 2 Pyro Gunners and the Pyro Agent it starts with, and then a wave of Consecrated Scorpion or Consecrated Vulture with the Seahorse, and then you get the Scorpion and the Crab. For the Skirmisher and Pyro Agent, you want to kill the Skirmishers, the Gunners, the Pyro Gunners, before they build up their shield. Again, Hydro will delete their shield, and you already should have Hydro, so you want to focus on them first, and whatever side that you're facing, they jump backwards, so you want to keep an eye on that to maybe group them up, but killing them fast. And then you want to go after the Seahorses and the Crabs before the Consecrated Beasts, because the Seahorses and Crabs will not follow you, but the Beasts will. So if you're attacking the Seahorses and Crabs, the Beasts will come to you, and you can hit them more easily that way. So those are my tips for fighting the Abyss. Now let's go into my tips for how good different characters are in my Abyss tier list. So I've played a fair solid bit of the Abyss with many different teams, and this is sort of my thoughts on who should be extra good in the first half or second half, and just talk about my notable thoughts, and then we can revisit this perhaps during the usage rates and see whether I was right or whether I missed stuff, that kind of thing. So in the both category, I have Kazuha, both meaning obviously they're good in both sides of the Abyss. So Kazuha is really good on the first side because he's good with aggravate. Sucrose is also really good on the first side. That's why I have her here. But I also really like him on the second side for grouping because he just makes it easier to consolidate your damage. So especially if you can swing a VV Vape team and you can play really smartly, or if you're using Novelette, or if you have a Hydro DPS like Kokomi or Ayato or Novelette or Farina or whatever, or Child, then Kazuha becomes really, really powerful on the second side. So I really, really like him. Kuki is good on both because Hyper Bloom is good on both. The Hyper Bloom would be so strong on the first side, except that it's if you do double Hydro Hyper Bloom, you can easily use it as your second side team. So that's really, really nice. So Kuki good on both, Hyper Bloom back in business. Nahida, again, Hyper Bloom good on both. Aggravate on the first side with Chlorand or Healerless Aggravate should be doable for the first half for a skilled player. The Abyss on the first half is not too aggressive, so you can get away with Aggravate Nahida, but also Nilou on the second half, Nahida is really good with. So Nahida quite good on both sides. Arlecchino, insane damage, really good on both sides. She's strong enough to even on non-Chevreuse teams, like obviously Chevreuse for the first half because you can easily slot in Electro for Simon. And on the second side, she can do, I did double Hydro Bennett was the easiest for me to get on the second side, but VV Vape should work too. It's just harder for me to defeat those Pyro Shields, so I preferred double Hydro Bennett. Double Hydro Zhongli should also work. I have Wander here, but you could put other DPSs as well. I think Linny should work well on the first side. You can obviously use him with Chevreuse teams, or you can just slot in, or you can just do lots of damage. Because Simon, you don't need an Electro. If you can defeat the constructs really quickly, then you don't need an Electro. And both Linny and Arlecchino are capable of that. Wanderer, he's just a very flexible character, so you could run him with double Hydro. You could run him with even a sort of aggravate team, or just with a sorry, I didn't mean double Electro, I mean double Hydro for the second side, or just single Electro on the first side. He easily has a flex slot. So Wanderer quite solid for this Abyss. Sino quite good for the first half. This is probably one of the best Sino Abysses. The first chamber is multi-wave, but especially if you do run Kuki with him, you can easily split his rotations and only use his burst sort of every other wave. So Sino should be quite good this Abyss. Similar to Wanderer, I think Zhao should, if it is assuming you have a very well built Zhao, right? If you don't have a super well built Zhao or Wanderer, then you're better off using some of the other characters. But if you have a well built one, they're gonna do fine. I'm not sure where to put Cryo. I think they should be good on the second side, but I like using them with Hydro. For Cryo, I think Freeze is sort of back. I think you can use Freeze on the second side if you want. I'm going to put Ganyu and Ayaka up here. I'm not going to put Rosaria and Kaya, but they're going to be solid. But I think Freeze is kind of back. You get Kazuha, you group them up. You make sure you have lots of Hydro from Kokomi. And I think you should be okay to use Freeze on the second side for the first time, and who knows how long. Freeze is actually good. I have Keqing and Chlorand, and Alhaitham and Raiden and Fischl and Tainari and Chevreuse. These should all be pretty obvious. Electro is really, really good on the first side, like Aggravate, Dendro, Spread. That's really, really good on the first side. Not just because of Simon, but Mega Kenki is kind of a joke, kind of a pushover. Any team that does decent damage can easily beat him. And then in the first chamber, it's really nice to have some AoE or some grouping or some multi-wave. Like, I don't know, it just feels like Aggravate is quite good there. And since you have to have an Electro at the end, you might as well run an Electro team. But I really like Navia on the first side as well. You can easily slot in a Fischl or a Yaimiko. So you do Navia, Geo, Fischl, Bennett, and you're pretty much away to the races. I think Bennett is really good on the first side. If you have a really well invested Risley, similar to Linny, you can do that. He doesn't have very much synergy with slotting in an Electro, so it's not the best. So I don't really want to put him up there, but it's gonna be totally fine. Lisa's obviously gonna be totally fine, but he's just not like crazy strong as a character. If you have a Chevreuse and a well-built Klee, that's going to be good too. Same with Hu Tao. I think Hu Tao could work on both sides. You do double Hydro Zhongli. You got to be really careful if you're going to do Zhongli against the Wolfhounds, the Rift Hounds. I wouldn't necessarily recommend Hu Tao, but she's pretty solid on either side. Like if you can run VV Vape with Kazuha on the first, or slot in Official, and she'll be really good on the first side or on the second side. I mean, I think Linny will be too. Don't take like the ratings like too seriously. Actually, no. No, Linny's not as good because he doesn't synergize as well with double hydro, and same as Klee. So that's why Hu Tao goes here and they go on the second side. Shang Ling is like good, but you don't really need pyro. Like pretty good on the first side if you're strong enough to delete the constructs right away. She doesn't synergize that well with electro for the first side, and I mean she does synergize with double hydro, but you've already got enough damage with lots of hydro. So I mean, you can use, she obviously works really well with Childe, with Ayaka, with Novelet. So you could, you know, I'd say more for the second side than the first side. Yoimiya, pretty weak these days. I think you're going to have a hard time clearing with Yoimiya. Baiju, obviously really good. You can use him for either. You can use him as the Dendro driver for Hyper Bloom or as the Aggravate Catalyst for the second side. We'll put Shiori up here. I think this might be a tough Abyss for Ito. He doesn't really want to flex in on Electro or Hydro, so let me know, but I don't think it's a super great Abyss. But Risey does work in Freeze as well, and he works in some stuff, so we'll put him on the second side. I don't think he's crazy, but it's not bad. I think you could do Burgeon for the second side, and his Pyro, you know, he has lots. He's good with Chevreuse. He has lots of resistance to the Pyro Lectors. You could do double hydro Burgeon. It's not that great, but it's decent. I think I used Shen Yun for Farina, Yelan, Shen Yun, like Raiden. I did that. That was okay. I think she's all right in Aggravate. She's fine. She's not crazy on either side. I think Venti you could use on the second side. This is roughly ordered, right? So the first bunch of characters is like a lot better than the second bunch, like up to Nilou, sort of. These are really, really good, and then it's kind of just pretty good after that. So these are sort of my initial thoughts as to what I think is good. It's kind of like Aggravate on the first side, Hyperbole on the second side. It's like good old classic. And obviously, I do want to talk a bit about Novelet because, and I mean, Ayato and Childe too, but Novelet especially really trivializes the second half, especially if you do have his signature or his weapon, like or his Constellation 1, like he crushes the second side of the Abyss. Kokomi Mono Hydro, Childe International, Ayato Mono Hydro or Ayato Farina, Bennett Kazuha. All of these are just so extremely good on the second half. They do great AoE damage, and they apply so much Hydro that just completely trivializes the second half. Novelet especially feels just a cut above. I mean, you could easily use Novelet on the first side. Like, he is great in both, but he's just so good on the second that you kind of don't want to waste that. But if for some reason you already have another, no, it makes no sense to not use him on the second side. So I guess I should put this as either. It's not really both, like, because they're not, like, these characters are not so strong that you prefer to use them on both. It's just they're strong enough to be used on either and happen to work well. So let me know your thoughts from the first impressions. Now, do I think that this was the hardest Abyss ever? I remember that 3.7 Abyss being harder, but I'm now on a controller on a PC as opposed to on mobile. I have better teams now than I did then, so I do think that this is the hardest Abyss ever. I definitely felt like when I wasn't using the best teams and I wasn't using 5-star weapons, the timing became a little tight. It felt hard to hit those DPS windows. Once I was actually using, you know, top meta teams or just teams that the elements worked really well, or I was using 5-star weapons, it wasn't that crazy difficult. I think if you're, the most important thing, and this Abyss just shows time and time again, you gotta get some good Hydro characters, like lots of Hydro characters. When Hydro is good, it's good. So whether it's Novelet, whether it's Kokomi, whether it's Ayata, whether it's Farina, whether it's Yelan, you gotta have, you know, 3 or 4 good Hydro characters, because Hydro is such a good element, and when you need a Hydro elemental check, oftentimes your other team also wants a Hydro. So have lots of Hydros, build your Fischl, it's worth it for Simon when they come around. Chevreuse, really, really good character. I really, really liked her on the first half of the Abyss. So extremely good. Gives another option to give, especially if you want to put Kazuha on the second side, or you don't want to build Sucrose, you don't like Sucrose. It'll be really interesting, since this was the hardest Abyss ever, it'll be interesting to see if by the end of Natlin we have another hardest Abyss ever, because I said this at the end of Sumeru, at some point it's hard for old characters to clear with full stars, and I think that this just shows like where the power creep is at, right? We have better units than we did before, and the game now expects you to have those better units. If you just came back and you didn't wish on any characters in Fontaine, and you don't have any 5-star weapons, even if your characters are well built, I could see this being a potential struggle. Like, yes, you could still use Child International on the second side and Aggravate on the first side and still clear, because of course you can. But I definitely think it's getting more and more difficult, and it'll be interesting. Now we have Imaginarium Theater to encourage people to wish for a variety of characters. Then the Abyss is encouraging people more and more to vertically invest. If you don't have good characters and on the right elements and they're well built, I really think you could definitely struggle. So let me know your thoughts on the Abyss. Let me know what you think I missed in terms of what characters were good. Take care. Bye for now.